Hi, so while we go over this homework, keep in mind I'm going to be reminding you what's on your memory quiz tomorrow. So anything with a star next to it is something you should be paying attention to and memorizing for tomorrow. What we're going to go over first is the vocabulary of polynomials. The degree of a polynomial is the largest exponent in standard form. So we have a polynomial, something with plus and minuses. Down here, 7x to the 5th, blah, blah, blah. The largest exponent is 5, so 5 is the degree. And that tells me I have at most 5 solutions. I could have less because some solutions repeat. Now, if the polynomial is in factored form, if you see groups, you need to add the highest exponent from each factor. So if you had y equals x cubed plus 2x squared times x to the 4th plus 3x. What you would do is you would use, we have two groups, right? Group on the left and the group on the right, those are called factors, and you're going to use your largest exponent from each group. Now, my largest exponent here is a 3. My largest exponent is a 4. You're going to add them together, and you're going to get a degree of 7. Now, that is very important to know. You need to know the degree is your largest exponent if you are in standard form. When a polynomial is in standard form, by the way, that means you have the term with the largest exponent first, and all of your exponents then descend until you get to 0. The first term is known as the leading term, so this is called your leading term. And then the first number in front is known as the leading coefficient. So for example, 7 would be the leading coefficient in this example. Now, polynomials are named by their degree. X to the first is linear. X squared is quadratic. Keep in mind you could use the quadratic formula if your largest exponent is 2. This is x cubed when you have a 3. X to the 4th is quartic, like quarter, and x to the 5th is quintic. After that, we just use the numbers because we give up. Now, a coefficient is the number in front of a variable. The variable is the letter. So take the term 6x. X is the variable, 6 is the coefficient. And the number that has no variable attached is called your constant. So for example, this is called a constant because 9, I spelled that one wrong. There you go, it's called, that's ugly. There we go. Constant because it has no variable. Now, a 0 is where the graph touches or crosses your x-axis. You need to know that for tomorrow. Now, something is a factor if it's an expression such as like x plus 4 or x minus 3. Those are factors for which the 0 where you cross the x-axis is the opposite value. So if your factor is x minus 3, your 0 is positive 3. An x-intercept is the same thing as a root, a 0, or a solution. If you need to find the roots algebraically, you should factor and then make your t-chart. If you can find them graphically, you're going to look at the x-axis, although that might not be that accurate on your calculator. So instead, you might look for when the table is equal to 0. So if you put an equation in your calculator and you see that 3 gives you 0, then your 0 or your x-intercept is x equals 3, and your factor is the opposite value. So your factor is x minus 3. What happened there? Okay, so your multiplicity is the number of times a polynomial has a root at the given point. Remember, you can have at most answers being the same as your degree. but sometimes your answers can happen multiple times. That is a multiplicity. Now, in an equation, it could be found in the exponent. Oops. There we go. So, for example, if you have x plus 3 to the 5th, then the 0 is, sorry, my pen's not really working that well. The 0 is -3. I really like 3's right now. And the multiplicity is 5. So x equals -3 happens 5 times. You do need to know your shapes. These are very important. If you have a multiplicity of 1, then you're going to go straight through the x-axis. So this is a multiplicity of 1. If you have a multiplicity of 2, then you're going to bounce off the x-axis. And if you have a multiplicity of 3, you are going to squiggle. That's not a great squiggle. So where it flattens out, that is your multiplicity of 3. And those are important to know. You have to know which shape is which multiplicity. Now, even degree polynomials have arrows that point in the same direction. So if you have, whoa, what just happened? Okay, I'm going to go with it. Even would be both up or both down. Now, if you are an odd degree polynomial, you have arrows that go in the opposite direction. I'm going to say that's important for you guys to know as well. Now, if you want to know, are your arrows going up or down, you have to look specifically at the right arrow of a polynomial. It can be used to determine the sign of your leading coefficient. So we're going to do a few cases for you and hold. Okay, so if you have a positive leading coefficient and an even degree, such as y equals 3x squared, your arrows are going to go in the same direction, and more specifically, they're both going to go up. So an even degree will have the right arrow going up and both arrows go in the same direction. If you have a negative leading coefficient, that's actually a reflection. You're going to end on the right going down. Odd degree means your arrows will be opposite. If it is a positive leading coefficient, your right arrow goes up. And because of the reflection, if you have a negative out front, so like y equals -x cubed, then you're going to end going down on the right. Now, the end behavior tells you what's happening at the very left and right side of the graph. If you have an xy axis, you have positive x values on the right and negative x values on the left. So when it says as x goes to infinity, positive x values are on the right, this means look to the right. And then you would answer positive infinity for graph going up, negative infinity for the graph pointing downwards. Now, as x goes to negative infinity, negative x values are on the left. And then you would have to answer, what's the actual equation doing? Positive infinity or negative infinity for down. Next is imaginary numbers. So we have a complex number, which is basically a form of imaginary and real numbers combined. So we have a plus bi. I is your real part, bi is the imaginary part. I is imaginary. I stands for the square root of -1. And you need to know for tomorrow that in your calculator, I is second decimal. And the decimal is on the bottom middle of the calculator. For some reason, it's not letting me open it on my computer right now. What you cannot do is leave exponents in your answer for I. So if you have I cubed, you need to type I cubed in the calculator, and it's going to simplify that to -I for you. If you have I squared, you need to type that in the calculator, and it's going to simplify it for you to -1. I squared comes up a lot. It might be helpful to just remember it. However, sometimes it doesn't really work for you. So if you are getting really crazy numbers, like if you try to do I to the 52nd, you might get a really weird number. And that's the case when you're going to go to I part. In order to get to I part, you are going to hit Math, and then you are going to choose, or rather scroll over and then choose number 3. Yep, double checked it. Hit Math, and then you're going to scroll to the right to where it says Number. And then you're going to choose number 3 for I part, and it will simplify it correctly for you. Now, you can actually simplify expressions in your calculator. So if you have 2 plus 4i squared, you could put that in the calculator and it will simplify it for you. What you can't do is put variables with it. And we're going to go over in class how to get around that tomorrow. So it is important to know imaginary roots do not cross or touch the x-axis. This is very important for tomorrow. So for example, if you have something that looks like, oh no, what's my computer doing now? Oh boy. If you have, there we go, like this. This has no x-intercepts. And if it has no x-intercepts, then it has no real roots. And I spelled real wrong, that was silly. No real roots. In other words, you have imaginary solutions. Okay? And you do need to know that imaginary solutions always come in pairs. Those are actually called conjugate pairs. And it's important to know that because sometimes a question will give you an answer choice with only one imaginary solution. You need to know that is wrong. If one solution is plus 3i, then the other answer is minus 3i as well. Now, imaginary solutions cannot be found by factoring. The key phrase that will usually give to you that your answer will be imaginary, it's going to say simplest a plus bi form. So you could try using the quadratic formula possibly to solve. Last thing we're going to go over is parabolas. So you need to know the equation of a parabola. If you are opening upward, then you are going, okay, cool, then that's weird. Huh, strange. Anyway, if you're going upwards, you're going to have x squared equals 4py. Weird. If you have something going downwards, so it's moving downwards. My humor is horrendous. If you are going downwards, you're going to have a negative 4py. If you're going to the left, this is to the right. If you're going to the right, you're going to be y squared equals 4px. And if you're going to the left, you're going to have y squared equals negative 4px. Now, tomorrow, I'm going to give you one of these, and you need to tell me which way the parabola is opening. Now, what you do need to know is that the focus, weird, is always inside of the parabola. The directrix is the line on the outside of the parabola. So in green, we have the focus on the inside. Notice how the blue parabola will never touch the red line of the directrix. Now, that distance from the vertex to the focus right here is called P. And whether you go from the vertex up to the focus or down to the directrix, the value will be the same. And because it's a distance, it always has to be a positive number, right? So the vertex is also in the middle of the focus and the directrix. So sometimes they'll give you the focus and the directrix, and you need to know to find the middle for the vertex. And you do need to know the vertex is always opposite of what is inside the parentheses. So your vertex, look how the x is positive 5, but in the equation it's negative 5. The y is negative 1, but in the equation it is positive 1. So I'm going to have you guys remember this for tomorrow. I'm going to give you an equation, and you need to tell me what is the vertex there. And always start by sketching a picture. Always. It will definitely help on a free response. It will give you at least 1 point. And I think we're done. We're done.